Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Lamar Jackson is heading for a legacy-defining game in Buffalo. And what do we know about the Knicks right now other than their guys are playing an ungodly amount of minutes? And Notre Dame has never played a bigger football game than they will next Monday. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
After this weekend, one of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen will be out of the playoffs. We'll go early, quote unquote, again. And by the way, these are your number one and number two, or 1A and 1B MVP candidates. Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens join me now. And Kevin, I know you've been banging the drum for Lamar Jackson as the MVP. We will see how this plays out. You're not here to talk about the MVP. I want to talk about this game. But I want to start with the narrative because, as I mentioned at the top, no matter what, one of these guys who right now, the thing that we're waiting for is that playoff breakthrough moment is going to be out. Tell me why it won't be Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like Lamar has so many things going his way right now. And that's not to say that means they're going to win the game. But for Lamar, I think this game means so much to him and so much to Baltimore, so much for the organization. And there are a lot of conversations about which team this game means more for. Mm-hmm. But I think when you talk about the conversations around Lamar and his playoff statistics versus Josh Allen's, obviously Josh does have the advantage there. I think that for Baltimore, the key here on the offensive side of the ball for Lamar is to, one, stick to who they are as a team, which is obviously a run-first team, but obviously the pass game has been really incredible for them this season, and sustaining long drives. Because I think when you talk about the best way to stop one of these all-star MVP caliber quarterbacks, is don't let them on the field. Time of possession-wise, the Ravens held the ball for 40 minutes against Pittsburgh, and the Bills held the ball for 41 minutes against the Broncos. Mm-hmm. That limits opportunities. And so I think for Lamar, he's very dialed in, very locked in right now. He wants to win so badly. He even said that he went back and he watched the Buffalo game from the divisional round all those years ago, it feels like, in that pick six that really was the straw that broke the camel's back. So there are a lot of narratives around Lamar Jackson, obviously a lot of narratives around Josh Allen as well, and two teams that have only made the AFC Championship once since those guys came in the league. And whichever team wins, that'll be seen as a great step in the right direction. Whichever team loses, some questions about the future might have to be answered.
We've also seen this matchup before. It was a long time ago in week 4, but the Ravens beat the brakes off the Buffalo Bills 35-10. The Ravens have changed a lot. The Bills have changed a lot, though the Bills seemed like they were in a good place at that game. They just had a brain fart of a game. What do you think from that game, though, is translatable to this matchup?
I think when you talk about Buffalo's run defense, first of all, it's very hit or miss. Buffalo either has stop a guy for 0 or 1 yard, or they give up a 20-plus yard run. Mm-hmm. But obviously that all evens out. They're a middling to not so great run defense.
Seems like a bad formula against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
You talk about explosive runs. The Ravens, they like to do that a couple times, just a couple times a game. But it seems like when you talk about the top 3 teams in the AFC, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, top 3 seeds, it seems to be like this triangle diagram of like, well, the Chiefs match up well with the Ravens historically, and the Ravens match up with the Bills well historically, and the Bills match up with the Chiefs well historically. It's like that. And so for this game, the Bills have a lighter defense, where the Ravens, when they have struggled, has come with more physical defensive fronts, bigger personnel. And you're right, the Bills, they're different from that week 4 matchup. They didn't have 3 of their top defenders. Their defensive line rotation looks a little bit different now. But they don't have the bodies. And plus, the Bills love nickel packages. They love playing base. And you can't do that consistently against the Ravens defense, because they will figuratively and literally eat you up with their big fullback Patrick Ricard. And they ran 6 offensive linemen out there for more than 10 snaps against Pittsburgh. You can't do that if you want to beat the Ravens. So Buffalo will have to get out of their comfort zone And I think that matches up well with what the Ravens want to do, because they're essentially going to say to Buffalo, try to stop this. And if they can't stop it, like the Steelers couldn't stop it, well, the Ravens had 50 rushes in that Steelers game. And if they can't stop it in Buffalo, probably be more of the same.
All right, look into your crystal ball here, Kevin. Let's say the Ravens lose. You will have to do a segment of your post-game show about Lamar Jackson, right? What will you be saying about him if the Ravens lose this game?
I think it depends on what the stats are and how the game goes. But obviously, if Lamar falls in this game, it's another wasted season, a disappointing end. And it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. And this can extend to John Harbaugh. But with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, that's been an incredible regular season pairing. They've won games together in the regular season. They've gotten themselves in position to make the postseason. But if you can't win the big games, if you can't get to the big dance, it's all for nothing. Lamar Jackson is 28 years old now. And I know you start to have conversations about, okay, who does his career look like? Is it Peyton Manning? Who is it? Guys who maybe didn't win.
Well, and how does it translate beyond 30 years old? We've seen guys who use their legs a lot, maybe have shorter shelf lives in their career.
And for Lamar, who is a dual threat guy, obviously, look, athleticism goes for everybody. And obviously for Lamar, he has proven himself as a thrower in this league, and he's done it for years and years and years. So I think that once the athleticism starts to go, he still has a lot of things he can hang his hat on. But of course, you want to maximize the window when Lamar is at the peak of his powers. And this, to me, is the best Lamar Jackson we have ever seen. And he continues to evolve each and every single season. And we're sitting here in 5 years, and he's 32 years old. We'll have to evaluate him from a player at that age. But right here is the now for Lamar Jackson. And I think for me, if the Ravens lose this game, there have to be some tough conversations about just where this team is and why they can't win big games, because they've had big wins this year. You hope it can translate over. But if it doesn't happen in the playoffs, then your season's all for nothing.
You can stay up to date all year on the Baltimore Ravens by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Ravens on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports today. Coming up, we attempt to make sense of the New York Knicks. Before we get to that, Jim Harbaugh is having a few procedures done this offseason. Is he still playing, or is he coach? From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 300 smackaroonies in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. The Houston Texans don't have a prayer, right? That's what people were saying about the matchup with the Chargers. And that's what they're saying about the matchup with the Chiefs. FanDuel has the Chiefs favored by 8.5. Okay, the Chargers are like 1.5 point favorites on the road. This game has the smallest total as well, 41.5 on the over-under. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This offseason will be a busy one for Jim Harbaugh. He will undergo a slew of medical procedures. The 61-year-old head coach of the Chargers will have a cardiac ablation and a hip replacement. The ablation is in reference to an incident where Harbaugh had to leave the Chargers' Week 6 game against the Broncos early. Back then, he had a flare-up with an atrial flutter, a type of arrhythmia that causes the heart to beat at an abnormally high rate. Harbaugh has said previously that he wouldn't consider retiring because of these health issues. He said back in October about that possibility, it would take my heart stopping for me not to be out there on the sideline. That is incredibly grim, but we believe you. The Wolves had a chance to take advantage of a Draymond Greenless Warriors.
And tonight, the Warriors held on to win over the Timberwolves 116-115, barely closing out this road trip with a much-needed win, salvaging a 2-2 record on this 4-game trip. And after jumping out to a 24-point lead in the first quarter, the Dubs let Ant Edwards and the Wolves back into this game in that second half, but had just enough in the tank to secure the win and outlast the comeback attempt. Steph led the offensive charge with 31 and 7 made three-pointers. GP2 made his return from injury tonight, provided a spark on defense. Guy Santos got his first start, some great minutes from him. TJD played some great minutes. Buddy Hield, a great effort off the bench. Moses Moody as well. Really an entire team effort in this win tonight. And Andrew Wiggins, a major major factor, grabbing key rebounds and hitting shots in the key non-Steph minutes.
And on the ice, hey, yeah, they're doing that. The Pittsburgh Penguins decided to place their starting goaltender on waivers as things have been rough for Tristan Jarry.
This was a move that had to happen. 824 goaltending, 2 starts in a row. And as I say during our main episode, he has not won a start since December 23rd against the Philadelphia Flyers. It's been almost a month. He's been awful this season, and you could not keep trotting him out there and be considered a serious organization.
It's been an eventful week or so for the New York Knicks. It started with a beatdown at the hands of the Thunder. Then they gave the beatdown to the Milwaukee Bucks, a loss to the Pistons, and then a grinded out overtime win last night, a 125-119 win over the Joel Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers. Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks joins me now. Gavin, I have to imagine your neck hurts after the whiplash of what can happen in an NBA season. And this is the nature of what this is now, right? Like the 3-point shot, you can just have a game where you score 140 and then another game where you're like, can we even score a bucket? What do you make of where the Knicks are right now and what we've seen over the last week?
Yeah, it's a team that has a really high ceiling still, and at their best, I think can play with anyone, even if they haven't always shown that at times this year. But it's still looking for consistency, still ironing out some of the finer details of what it takes to be a really great and consistent basketball team. So certainly a group that's benefited from playing nearly the weakest schedule in basketball so far this year. They have the hardest schedule in basketball the rest of the way, which makes it all the more important that they pulled this one out against Philly tonight, because it looked like they were going to blow it for a while.
It did, and the game did go to overtime, so they did nearly blow it in that way. Early in the season, there were some concerns about the fit with Karl Anthony Towns, with Mikal Bridges, and these new additions. It should be noted, Karl Anthony Towns also did not play, so it's not just a Joel Embiid-less Sixers team. But we saw the Mikal Bridges that the Knicks were hoping for in this game. 23 points on efficient shooting. What have they found over the last month or so? And really, it was Cat from the start, but they've assimilated these pieces a little bit better lately, even though if it's still, clunky at times.
Yeah, Cat, I think extraordinarily fast start for him. 0 complaints. We were talking preseason and saying, it's going to be, and this even felt a little optimistic, 20 games before him and Brunson get it together. And then you look 20 games into the season and they're the best pick and roll combo.
Yeah, it was like 5 games into the year. You're like, yeah, this works.
It was preseason was sloppy, and there's still obviously stuff to get better at, but Cat's been amazing. Mikal's had a deeply weird season. Looked like he had a new jump shot coming into the year. He confirmed that he did, in fact, was messing with his form despite consistently being one of the better 3-point shooters in the NBA. Was absolutely just terrible shooting the ball. But beyond that, his defense was certainly not up to his Phoenix standard. He looked absolutely allergic to attacking the rim. Through the first 13 games of the season, I think he only took 8 free throws. Then all of December got incredibly hot, led the NBA in effective field goal percentage, and then has mostly been quite bad in January, not able to make a shot until these last 2 games. Then even tonight, a great start for him, and then pretty much nothing in the second half. I would not have minded if Tom Thibodeau went with Deuce McBride. Not a new acquisition, but kind of a similar story with OG Anunoby, where he has struggled quite a bit as well after a great start to the year.
Here's going to be the question I think, Gavin, a lot of Knicks fans have, and of course Knicks haters are going to point out. It's an overtime game. 8 guys played. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Jalen Brunson, and Josh Hart all played over 40 minutes. Josh Hart played 49 minutes in this basketball game, Gavin. And this was a team that was decimated by injuries in the playoffs last year. Tom Thibodeau is not going to change. So I don't even, there's not even a question here. I'm worried. I'm worried about it.
Yeah, so I cannot be emphatic enough that I feel the narrative last year about the minutes was utter malarkey, I guess is the nicest word I can use, because they had injuries like Julius Randle flipping over Jaime Jaquez and landing on his shoulder that just had nothing to do with minutes. And then because of just incredibly bad luck, they had to start playing guys 50 minutes because they lost their whole rotation. And at that point, you're in the playoffs, you're fighting for your lives. I totally agree with playing guys 50 minutes at that point. What I don't agree with is playing Josh Hart 49 minutes in a January 15th 15th game against the Philadelphia 76ers when they have the three leading guys in the league in total minutes right now. ESPN had a great stat tonight. No team has ever had 4 of the top 10 in total minutes. The Knicks currently have 5 of the top 10. Tom Thibodeau setting records in that sense. I am
on brand as always, Tom.
Look, your goal is not to be the 3 seed. Your goal is to win a championship. And some people have argued it. I absolutely believe the minutes have had an effect on Mikal Bridges' legs, on OG Anunoby's legs, and you're risking. I mean, you're playing with fire with OG, and this is one of the most injury-prone players in the NBA. He's played in every single game this year, which would credit him. That's awesome, but he's not been the same player after the first 20 games. It's hard for me to believe that doesn't have anything to do with him playing just an unparalleled amount of minutes and games. Give him a week off. Send Mikal Bridges to Hawaii for a week if you need to. Like, whatever you need to do to refresh these legs. The Knicks have shot 30% from 3 over these last 10 games. I think they are dead tired in a lot of different ways. And if it means you lose some games, that's fine. But tonight, I think, is a great example. Campaign had a spectacular first half. He doesn't play in the second half. Deuce McBride was cooking. I thought he was one of their 2 or 3 best players. They put an OG Anunoby for him down the stretch. It worked out tonight. They needed everything from Jalen. They needed everything from Josh. But big picture, I don't think this makes any sense. If your goal is a championship, if your goal is the 3 seed, congratulations, you're on track.
You can stay up to date all year on the New York Knicks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Knicks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Notre Dame has never played a more important game than they will next Monday night. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. It is a special treat when my wife and I get to go out to a concert. We have young kids, and so we want everything to be unforgettable, and we only want it to be a positive experience. Sometimes buying tickets is not one. That's different with Game Time, because they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The upcoming national championship game is the first of the 12-team playoff variety. There's never been a bigger game in Notre Dame history than this one.
I really think, when you consider all the circumstances and all the stakes, this would be the biggest win in the history of the Notre Dame football program for several reasons. One, it's the national championship. That's obvious, right? And Notre Dame is going up against a super team that, quite frankly, has dominated them over the last few decades. This is a bigger game than Miami in 1988 and Florida State in 1993, because those are regular season games. Like when I was a kid growing up, learning about the Notre Dame lore, those are the 2 games that I heard about the most. I get it for both. Those are, 1 versus 2 matchups in Notre Dame Stadium, game of the century type deals. But even though Notre Dame won those games, that didn't guarantee a national championship. As a matter of fact, they still lost the title in 1993, or a better way of phrasing that would be they got robbed by the voters, but at least they did win it in 1988. It just wasn't really that game. This is for the championship. It's also the toughest championship that anybody has ever had to win in college football, because it's the first in the new 12-team playoff format. And I understand that in the old system, only 2 teams were afforded the chance to even make the championship because of the BCS, so it was a little bit less accessible. But those teams who won in the BCS era did not have to win 3 more games on top of what they did in the regular season, going up against the best teams in college football to even get to this point. I also think it's bigger than West Virginia back in 1989, because even though that game was also for the national championship and the Mountaineers were undefeated, they don't have the same level of prestige as Ohio State, and I don't think they were as talented as what Notre Dame is going up against on Monday.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is the biggest game in Notre Dame history. The biggest game in modern Notre Dame history. Notre Dame goes back pretty far. The problem that I have is no one's talking about it. No one's talking about this game really at all, unless you're a diehard college football fan, because it's happening during the NFL playoffs. The thing about the old bowl system is we had a national champion by the first week of January. It's going to be a week and a half between the college football playoff semifinals and a national champion is crowned, there is no juice. No, this is Ohio State and Notre Dame. This is as blue blood gets in college football. This is a great matchup, a great game. I can't wait to watch it, except there's no juice at all because they've just drawn this out too far. A 12-team playoff is, in my view, a better format than the old system. I think 8 was the perfect number, but I get it. 12. Okay. They don't need to wait a week and a half between these games. It ruins the enthusiasm that you have for it because NFL playoffs, NBA is going on. The timing of the old system, not the old system, the timing of the old system was better. January 1st, you had the Rose Bowl, you had the Citrus Bowl, you knew by the time you had to go back to work who the national champion was. Now it's going to be practically February before we crown a national champion. That's, to me, a bad system because you lose these storylines. And finally, we've all had our New Year's resolutions. Mine is to open the mute Twitter less. I love to open the mute and see what people who have muted him are saying to me. I'm not doing that anymore. Well, maybe AJ Brown's was to read more. The star wideout is taking heat for reading on the sidelines. Taking heat, a lot of people are buying the book. It's a bestseller now. But people are going, why is he reading on the sidelines? Cameras caught him during the Eagles' win over the Packers. The book was Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. Inner Excellence. It is now a bestseller. And like on the sidelines, why wouldn't you have a little inspirational quote, a little something? I love that. Why not? Why not? What is it hurting? It's not like he's got his Nintendo out. Let him read a book. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will either of the top seeds lose in the divisional round? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.